I stood by the window, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow across the living room. I couldn't help but smile as I thought about Ethan. Our life together felt secure, like an unbreakable bond. We had built a home filled with laughter and love. I believed our love was strong enough to weather any storm. But was it? Just as I let that thought slip away, a sudden knock at the door broke my reverie. It was the delivery guy with a package for Ethan. I handed him a tip with a smile, but my mind was elsewhere. Was I really happy? My thoughts drifted back to the countless late nights I had spent at work, the familiar hum of the office, and the quiet moments I shared with my coworkers. That's when I met Jake. He was new, a charismatic coworker who walked in like he owned the place. The first time he flashed that charming smile at me, I felt a flutter in my chest. It was strange. I hadn't felt that way in years. "Hey, Lila," he said, leaning casually against the doorframe, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Do you have time to help me with this project?" "Sure," I replied, trying to sound composed. But inside, my heart raced. Jake had a way of looking at me that made me feel seen in a way Ethan hadn't in a long time. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just harmless fun. As the days turned into weeks, our late-night work sessions became the highlight of my week. The air between us crackled with tension, an unspoken connection that neither of us dared to fully acknowledge. One night, as we sat surrounded by papers and coffee cups, I let my guard down. "You know, I used to love staying late at the office," I confessed, laughing lightly. "Now it feels like a chore." Jake chuckled, leaning closer. "Maybe we just need to make it more fun." His voice was low, inviting. I felt a rush of warmth as our eyes locked. In that moment, something shifted. We shared a laugh, and then, without thinking, I leaned in and kissed him. It was electric, exhilarating, yet terrifying. The kiss lingered in the air, leaving me breathless. I pulled back, my heart pounding. "What did we just do?" I whispered, panic rising within me. "This can't happen." Jake's expression changed, a mix of surprise and something deeper. "Lila, I can't," I interrupted, my voice trembling. Guilt washed over me like a tidal wave. How could I betray Ethan like this? The man who loved me unconditionally, who trusted me completely? As I left that night, my mind swirled with a chaotic mix of desire and guilt. The intoxicating feeling of Jake's lips lingered, but so did the weight of my actions. I tried to shake it off, but the guilt loomed over me like a dark cloud. How could I let this happen? When I got home, Ethan was waiting for me, his smile bright and warm. "You're home late," he said, wrapping me in a hug. "I missed you." "I missed you too," I replied, forcing a smile that felt heavy on my lips. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess the confusion swirling in my heart, but fear held me back. What would he think? Would I break him? As I stared at my wedding ring, a symbol of our love, I felt a deep ache in my chest. How could I ever jeopardize the life we built together? I couldn't help but wonder how I ended up in this tangled web of emotions. What was I really searching for? Was it excitement, validation, or something more? The questions lingered as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with my thoughts. The warmth of Ethan's love was like a blanket, but the thrill of Jake's kiss ignited a fire I hadn't felt in years. I was caught between two worlds, and I had no idea how to find my way back. Would I be strong enough to face the truth, or would I let the darkness consume me? As I sat in our cozy living room, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. It was hard to believe how different my life felt now compared to the early days with Ethan. Back then, everything seemed so effortless. We would spend hours talking, laughing, and dreaming about our future. I could almost hear Ethan's laughter echoing in my mind, a sound that once filled my heart with warmth. Do you remember our first trip to the beach? I asked Ethan one evening, hoping to spark some of that old magic. He smiled, his eyes lighting up. Of course! We got lost on the way and ended up at that little diner. I thought we would never find the beach. I chuckled at the memory. And we ended up having the best milkshakes of our lives. Yet, as the laughter faded, I felt a familiar ache in my chest. Those moments felt like they belonged to another time, a time when our love was vibrant and alive. Now, everything felt stagnant. Our conversations had become routine, our evenings spent in silence or with the flicker of the television. I longed for the passion we once had, the spontaneity that made my heart race. As I scrolled through my messages one day, I noticed a text from Jake. It was just a playful comment about our latest project, but it ignited something in me. I felt a spark, a thrill that I hadn't experienced in years. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, but I found myself typing back, "You always know how to make work a little more fun, don't you?" To my surprise, Jake replied almost immediately. "Only because I have the best partner. How about we celebrate finishing this project with a drink after work?" I bit my lip, excitement bubbling inside me. I knew I should say no, but the thought of spending time with someone who saw me differently was too tempting. "Sure, why not?" I typed back, my heart racing. As the days passed, our messages grew flirtatious. Each exchange pulled me deeper into a world I thought I had left behind. I felt alive again, but with that came a heavy cloud of guilt. How could I be so drawn to someone else when I was still married? I tried to shake the thoughts away, but they lingered like a shadow. One evening, while Ethan was in the kitchen preparing dinner, I sat at the dining table, staring blankly at my phone. I knew I was keeping a secret from him, one that was growing heavier with each passing day. He walked in, a smile on his face, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "Dinner is ready. I made your favorite," he said cheerfully. I forced a smile, grateful for his kindness, but feeling the weight of my deception. "Thanks, Ethan. It smells amazing." As we ate, I tried to engage in conversation, but my mind drifted back to Jake. I was hiding my feelings from Ethan, and it made me feel alone. I wanted to share my struggles, but I didn't know how to start. Ethan seemed so happy, so blissfully unaware of my internal battle. "Is everything okay?" he asked, noticing my distracted demeanor. "Yeah, just a little tired from work," I replied, but even I could hear the lie in my voice. He nodded, his attention returning to his plate, and I felt the distance between us grow. I wanted to scream, to tell him about the connection I felt with Jake, but fear gripped me. I was afraid of hurting him, of shattering the life we built together. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. I was caught in a web of my own making, torn between the love I had for Ethan and the excitement that Jake brought into my life. It was a moral quandary that I never thought I would face, and yet here I was, feeling more lost than ever before. In those quiet moments, I realized that I had to confront my feelings. I could no longer pretend that everything was fine. I needed to decide what I truly wanted, but the thought of facing the truth felt daunting. How could I unravel the knot of emotions that held me captive? As I stood outside Jake's apartment, a storm of emotions churned within me. I felt a mix of excitement and dread. My heart raced, and my palms were sweaty. Was I really about to do this? I took a deep breath, trying to calm the chaos in my mind. I reminded myself of the consequences. What would happen if Ethan found out? Would I be betraying everything I had built with him? I knocked on the door, and Jake opened it with that familiar grin. "Hey, you made it," he said, his voice warm and inviting. The moment I stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The room was dimly lit, and I could feel the electricity in the air. It was intoxicating. Yeah, I did, I replied, trying to sound casual, but my heart was pounding. I could feel my cheeks flush as I took in the sight of him. He looked so effortless, so confident. It was hard not to be drawn to him. We started talking, sharing stories from work, and laughing about the little things that had happened throughout the week. I felt myself relax, forgetting for a moment the weight of my guilt. But deep down, I knew it was just a temporary escape. I was still married, still tied to Ethan. "Do you want some wine?" Jake asked, breaking my train of thought. "Sure," I said, trying to sound upbeat. As he poured the wine, I couldn't help but notice how easily he moved, how he seemed to know exactly what to do to make me feel at ease. The conversation flowed, and soon we were sitting close on the couch. I could feel the heat radiating from him, and I fought the urge to lean in closer. But then he turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "Lila, can I be honest with you?" he said, his voice low. My heart raced even faster. "Okay," I replied, bracing myself. "I really like you. I know this is complicated, but I can't help how I feel," he confessed. His words hung in the air, heavy and charged. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, I felt a rush of warmth and confusion. Did I like him too? I knew I shouldn't, but something in me wanted to say yes. Before I could think it through, Jake leaned in closer. The moment felt electric, and I found myself drawn to him against my better judgment. Our lips met in a soft kiss, and for a brief second, I forgot everything else. It felt good, too good, but as soon as it ended, reality crashed back in. I pulled away, my breath shaky. "I shouldn't have done that," I whispered, the guilt flooding back over me like a wave. Jake looked at me, his expression a mix of desire and concern. "Lila, I get it, but you have to know that this isn't just a fling for me. I want more," he said, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. I shook my head, trying to push the weight of his words away. I can't lose everything I have with Ethan. As I left Jake's apartment, the thrill of the kiss quickly faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of emptiness. I felt hollow, like I had crossed a line I could never uncross. When I walked through the door of my home, Ethan greeted me with his usual warmth, wrapping his arms around me. "How was your evening?" he asked, his eyes bright with love. "It was fine," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I watched him smile. I wanted to scream, to tell him everything, but the words wouldn't come. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at my wedding ring. The diamonds sparkled under the soft glow of the lamp, a painful reminder of the life I had almost jeopardized. How could I have done this? I questioned everything about myself and my choices. I thought of Ethan's love, how he trusted me completely. The guilt washed over me again, heavy and suffocating. I had to confront this feeling, confront the choices I was making. I couldn't keep lying, not to him and not to myself. As I closed my eyes, I realized that the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. I had to decide whether to fight for my marriage or give in to the temptation that Jake represented. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, and I knew that the next steps I took would shape my future in ways I couldn't yet understand. As days passed, I felt myself sinking deeper into a chaotic storm of lies and deceit. Each hidden message from Jake felt like a weight pulling me down, and I found it harder to breathe. I was caught in a web of my own making, and the more I struggled, the tighter it became. I often stared at my reflection in the mirror, searching for the woman I used to be, but all I saw was a stranger staring back at me. One evening, while I sat at my kitchen table, my phone buzzed with a message from Jake. "We need to talk, Lila. I can't keep waiting for you." My heart raced. The pressure was mounting, and I knew I had to confront the reality of my situation. I typed a response, my fingers trembling on the screen. Can we meet tomorrow? As soon as I hit send, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. What was I doing? That night, Ethan came home with a smile, bringing a bouquet of flowers. Surprise! Just because, he said, his eyes sparkling with love. I forced a smile, trying to push away the guilt that twisted in my stomach. I wanted to tell him the truth, to confess everything, but the words felt stuck in my throat. How could I shatter this moment? As we sat down for dinner, I watched him talk about our future. I was thinking we could finally take that trip to Italy next summer, he said, his voice filled with hope. My heart sank. Italy. The thought of a future filled with plans and dreams made the weight of my secret feel even heavier. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him that I was falling apart inside. But all I could do was nod and smile. Later that night, as I lay in bed next to Ethan, I heard him mumble in his sleep, "I love you, Lila." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. How could I betray someone who loved me so deeply? The thought of my affair with Jake hung over me like a dark cloud, consuming every happy moment. I closed my eyes, hoping for sleep, but my mind was a whirlwind of confusion and despair. The next day, I met Jake at a cafe. My heart raced as I walked in, scanning the room for him. When I spotted him, my stomach flipped. He smiled as he saw me, and for a brief moment, the chaos faded away. But as we sat down, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. "Lila, I need to know where we stand," Jake said, his voice serious. "I can't keep waiting for you to make a choice." His gaze was intense, and I could feel the pressure building inside me. I wanted to scream, to tell him that I was torn, that I loved Ethan, but was drawn to him in a way I couldn't explain. I don't know," I stammered, my heart pounding. "It's just so complicated. I have a life with Ethan." "Do you want that life?" he asked, leaning closer. "Or do you want more than that?" His words hung in the air, and I felt the world tilt beneath me. I thought of Ethan, his smile, his dreams for us. But then I thought of the thrill I felt with Jake, the passion that had been missing for so long. "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake's expression changed, and I could see the frustration in his eyes. "Time is running out, Lila. You have to make a choice." As I walked back home, my mind swirled with thoughts. I felt trapped, like I was standing at a crossroads with no clear path. I could hear Ethan's laughter in my head, see his face filled with love, and it made my heart ache. But then there was Jake, with his magnetic charm and the excitement he brought into my life. I reached for my wedding ring, twisting it around my finger. How could I choose between the two? I was caught in a storm of my own making, and the only certainty was the guilt that weighed me down. I knew I had to face this chaos head on, but the thought of it left me feeling lost and terrified. I woke up that morning with a heavy heart. The sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the room where Ethan still lay asleep beside me. I reached for my phone, hoping to see a message from Jake, but there was nothing. I had tried to distance myself from him, to clear my mind and focus on my marriage, but the emotional pull was still there, like a magnet drawing me back to him. As I got out of bed, I glanced at Ethan. His peaceful expression made my chest tighten. I thought of the joyful moments we shared, the laughter over silly inside jokes, the spontaneous road trips, and the quiet evenings spent wrapped in each other's arms. Those memories felt like a warm blanket, but they also amplified my internal conflict. How could I have let it come to this? In the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared out the window, lost in thought. Just then, my phone buzzed. I picked it up to see a message from Jake. "Miss you. Can we talk?" My heart raced. I wanted to respond, to tell him how much I missed him too, but I hesitated. I could feel the weight of my betrayal pressing down on me. Ethan walked in, his hair tousled and a sleepy smile on his face. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, wrapping his arms around me. I felt warmth spread through me, but it was quickly followed by guilt. "Good morning," I replied, forcing a smile. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat down at the table. "Any plans for today?" he asked, looking at me with those bright blue eyes that still made my heart flutter. "I thought I might clean up around the house," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maybe go for a run later." Ethan nodded, but I could see a hint of disappointment in his expression. "You always loved to run. I miss seeing you out there." I bit my lip, feeling a wave of regret wash over me. "I'll get back into it, I promise." After breakfast, I found myself alone in the living room, the silence pressing in around me. I picked up a photo of us from the shelf. We were at the beach, laughing and splashing in the waves. I remembered how free and in love I felt at that moment. "What happened to us?" I whispered to myself, tears filling my eyes. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. It was Jake. "Can we meet? I need to see you." My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't, but the thought of seeing him again made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. I texted back, "Okay, let's meet at the cafe." As I drove to the cafe, I grappled with my decision. I could feel the weight of my choices pressing down on me. What was I doing? I was betraying the man who loved me more than anything. When I arrived, Jake was already there, leaning against the wall with that familiar, charming smile. My heart skipped a beat. "Lila," he said, his voice low and inviting. "I'm glad you came." I sat down, trying to steady my breathing. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. "About what?" he asked, leaning closer. "About us," I whispered, feeling the intensity of our connection draw me in. Jake reached out, brushing my hand with his fingers. "I miss you, Lila. We have something special. Don't you feel it?" I pulled my hand back, my heart racing. "I do feel it, Jake. But I also love Ethan. He deserves better than this." "Do you really think you can go back to him?" Jake asked, his expression serious. "You and I have something real. You can't just walk away from it." I felt torn, the weight of my emotions crashing down on me. I can't keep lying to him. I need to come clean. Jake's face fell. "Are you sure that's what you want? What if he can't forgive you?" I looked away, feeling the tears spill over. "I don't know, but it's eating me alive. I can't keep living like this." As I left the cafe, I felt a moment of clarity. I knew I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it would be. I had to tell Ethan what I had done. The depth of my betrayal weighed on me like a storm cloud, and I could no longer hide. That evening, as we sat together on the couch, my heart raced. I could feel Ethan beside me, his warmth and love wrapping around me. I took a deep breath, ready to confront the truth I had been avoiding. "Ethan, can we talk?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to me, concern etched on his face. "Of course. What's wrong?" This was it, the moment of truth. I had to find the words that would change everything. Sitting in my living room, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. My heart raced as I stared at the door, knowing that Ethan would be home soon. The moment of truth was coming. I could no longer hide from the mess I had created. With every tick of the clock, I was reminded of the lies I had told, the moments I had stolen, and the love I was risking. I glanced at my wedding ring. Its shine felt dull against the chaos swirling inside me. "What have I done?" I whispered to myself, tears welling up in my eyes. The truth was screaming in my head, but I had pushed it aside for too long. I needed to choose between honesty and deceit. When the door opened, Ethan stepped in with his usual warmth. "Hey, Lila, I brought your favorite flowers." he said, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. His smile lit up the room, but it felt like a spotlight on my guilt. Thanks, Ethan. They're beautiful, I replied, forcing a smile as I accepted the flowers. But deep down, the joy of the moment felt overshadowed by my internal storm. As we settled on the couch, I could feel the distance growing between us. You seem a bit off today. Are you okay? He asked, concern etched on his face. I hesitated, battling the urge to spill everything. Yeah, I'm fine, just tired, I said, but the words tasted bitter. I knew I was lying, and it hurt. Then, as if a switch had flipped, I took a deep breath. Ethan, we need to talk, I said, my voice trembling. His expression shifted. What's wrong? I haven't been honest with you. About everything. The words spilled out, each one feeling like a stone dropped into a still pond. The ripples of my confession would change everything. What do you mean? His voice was calm, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. I've been seeing someone else, I admitted, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep living this lie. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Ethan's face went pale, and I could see the hurt in his eyes. Who? He asked quietly, almost as if he already knew the answer. It's Jake, my coworker, I confessed, each word cutting deeper than the last. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I got caught up in something I didn't understand at first. He looked away, and I could see the pain in his eyes. How could you do this to us, Lila? I thought we were happy. We were happy, but it felt like something was missing. I thought I could find it elsewhere, but I was wrong. I was so wrong, I cried, tears streaming down my face. He shook his head, disbelief flashing across his features. And you thought lying would help? I thought I could fix it, I shouted, frustration and sorrow mixing in my voice. I didn't want to lose you, Ethan. I love you. But I also felt something for Jake. I was confused. Ethan sat in silence, processing my words. This is a lot to take in, Lila. I don't know if I can look at you the same way again. I understand. I've shattered your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I want to be honest now, to fight for us if you'll let me. I need you to know that you mean the world to me. He took a deep breath, pain evident in his eyes. I need time to think. Please, Ethan. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right, I pleaded, my heart aching. I know I've hurt you, but I believe we can find a way back to each other. He nodded slowly, but I could see the uncertainty in his gaze. I don't know if we can go back, Lila. This changes everything. As we sat in silence, I realized that my journey was just beginning. I had opened the door to honesty, and now I had to face the fallout of my choices. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to confront the complexities of love, desire, and guilt that shaped who I was. In that moment, I understood that true love meant facing the truth, no matter how painful. I had to learn to forgive myself and embrace the lessons that life had thrown my way. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about how a moment of honesty has transformed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this one.